Ishtakana, remix with Akon. You're one wrong, where this man come from? Bojin, Senegal Bojin. For Jamaican City Bojin. West Africa, to North Africa, East Africa, Addis Ababa. Have the same vision, Muslim and Christian.
Whoa, whoa, once again it's on. Yes, indeed. We are locally located in the western area, the last historical community we got left. And you already know what you're tuning into. It is the Think Champs. No doubt, no doubt. Oh my gosh, I'm sitting between these two pillars right now. What's good?
Pillars in the building.
Let's get it, let's get it.
Yes.
Let's get it. That's good, okay? No doubt.
Thanks, God.
One love, no doubt. We are in.
What?
Yeah, Rev, tell her what's good, man.
Nah, man, conscious royalty, man. These two brothers take it back to the 90s, man. They Sadie babies for real. These are Sadie babies, so salute to all the Sadie babies out there.
Big up, big up.
Big up.
We got red and blue pill in the building. Moorish science, metaphysics, comedic science, all the science. They just got it. You know what I mean? So we're gonna go deep tonight.
Oh, we going in.
We going in. Salute y'all brothers, though.
Peace to the God.
Salute y'all. I want to say that on wax, man. They influence can't be measured. There's a lot of unsung heroes. Even if you're known, you might not be known on the real level. You should be known, but they're loved in the community, in every community. They ever step in because they care about the people and they teach, they protect. And they, you know what I mean, they got the swag, you know what I mean, they dripping, so you know what I mean.
And you go back, it's not like you're
no
observing
question
this shit from a distance, like,
No doubt.
you know.
No doubt.
We got history, at least 10 underneath our belt.
Yeah.
If not more, you know, streets are in wild all the way to the A.
All our peoples know each other.
That's right.
You know what I mean, if it wasn't us connected, we connected through them.
That's right.
That's a fact.
So I heard a lot about y'all way before I met y'all.
Right. Our reputation precedes us.
Yes, sir. So now we got red and blue in the building.
No doubt, man. Give thanks for your brothers coming in, man. For real, because it's really the time for us to build, you know? It never stop. You know
That's
that,
right.
right?
That's
Building
right.
never stop, you know?
Building is constant.
You know, constantly building and constantly what? Elevate. No doubt, no doubt. Because we was raised under them teachers, right? You know what I'm saying? Growing up in the streets of New York, you know, it was just a certain,
Where
you know what I'm
from,
saying? For Rockaway, Queens, you know?
Okay.
That's
Okay,
it.
all right.
They call us
shout out
the
to
Rock,
Far Rock.
you know what I mean? Big up for Rock. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
I'm gonna give you some science on that too.
No doubt, no
Indeed.
doubt.
Rest in peace to Stack Bundles.
Oh,
Right.
my
Rest in peace to
Rest
Team
in peace.
Drugs.
Right.
No doubt. Big
You know
them
what I'm
up.
saying? And the many souls. We always used to hear about superhumans, like mutants.
True.
From Far Rock.
Ah,
They was
respect.
lost, you know what I mean?
Hey.
They're not normal. And there's a reason. I mean, I can get into it now. We can wait a little while.
Hey, listen, you dropping some jewels. We
Something
love
in
it,
the
man.
water.
Let that water flow, man.
Yeah, so he said it's something in the water. So all communities, and shout out to anybody that's listening to this, you can attest. Any community that you find melanated people at near water, them people go a little bit harder. They're
Right.
almost like mutants.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And because what's called the Leonard effect, by crashing waves, it increases what's called negative ions. So negative ions are charging your melanin to a different degree. So you have more potential or propensity to do things, use energy in ways that other people can't. Think about it, Stephon Marbury and all of them young brothers, you know,
Coney
who
Island.
applied themselves in Coney Island. But think about when niggas go mad in them areas, they super villains. Like they next level. They
You
going
never
in.
said that, but the truth did.
So the
Real.
piezoelectricity, right, is what we create when we walk, but more so like running on sand.
Right.
Because sand is quartz broken up.
Dude.
So the piezoelectricity in our bones best resembles granite, like how the obelisk is built.
Truly,
Right. So anytime that you put pressure on a crystal, it creates an electric charge. So when we run and we move, we're emitting photon energy, right?
Truth and right.
You can see it. They got cameras that can detect it, right? Bioluminescence. But when you, like say, running on the beach or you're near a beach, you even have more of that energy, more piezo electricity. So the melanin is absorbing so much power and electricity. If you fuck around and drink or become a drunk, because you'll find a lot of that in them environments,
No
right?
doubt, no doubt.
Right.
Depressed melanin that has collapsed on itself. And when it abuses itself, it'll abuse it on another level. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, when the willies in them areas would be super willies,
Yeah.
Right.
right? Little niggas be super tough
True,
in
no
them
doubt.
areas.
No doubt.
It's because of that propensity to absorb so much of that electricity coming off of that water. Negative ions attract positive things. It's the reverse in science, the way that they teach us in culture.
See it. I can see it because right there, growing up, we always had, you know what I'm saying, the Atlantic Ocean right there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But then on the other side, we had the bay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was two different elements. We'd be
Two
over,
different energies, right?
you know, two
Right.
totally different energies, but
Yeah.
like blocks away.
Right. Right.
So we grew up like we either at the beach or we at the bay. You know what I mean?
So one is
Just
fresh water, one is salt water.
one is salt water.
Yeah. Totally different energy.
Right.
And there's a rock, so you got to get there by crossing the bridge. You
Right.
can't really get there because there's a peninsula.
Right.
So a peninsula is separated by itself, pretty much as an island. You know what I'm saying? Only connected by bridges. So being there was just like, you know, you on your own island. Even though you in New York, I go to Harlem, you know what I'm saying, see my aunts and cousins, and I'm in the city. You know what I
You're
mean?
on an island though.
Yeah, but I'm on an island.
Think
so,
about it.
So let him break down,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Kings County.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to the boroughs that we all know about, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, Staten Island,
Forget it.
we had what is known as Kings County. Right? Now, when people hear Kings County, they think about the modern day definition, which only identifies Brooklyn as Kings County. But the original Kings County was Long Island, Queens, and Brooklyn
Right.
together as a one mass,
It's in one
right?
mass.
One mass.
Nothing separates them.
Nothing separates them. And when
But fake demarcation lines.
the fake demarcation lines that they created called the
you
boroughs.
from Long Island and you in Queens. Niggas
Right,
across the
right.
street.
I'm in Kings County.
In Kings County. But I do remember that, because look,
Now-
we used to go, not cut Brady out,
Right.
'cause we used to go to like a place called the flea market, right?
Yeah.
5 Points Flea Market, right? So we go to 5
yeah.
Points Flea Market right there. That was all Kings County too.
There you go. So the original King County, because when you talk about Long Island, you have to talk about the Aboriginals, the indigenous,
Melanated.
the melanated Aboriginal indigenous inhabitants of the areas that you call the Hamptons now, right?
True. The Ham, yep.
I knew that was
Yep.
outside.
Where the white
We
people
talk about
at
the
now.
finest parts.
Where the white people at.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talking plush real estate,
Plus.
right?
No
The
doubt.
illest parts.
Right.
Then we have to factor in the Montauk, right?
Who was the father tribe of all of the 5 civilized tribes. So what he talking about in the Hamptons is the Shinnecock.
Shinnecock.
Right, the Shinnecock.
But the tribe is, you know, over, you know, I don't want to use a subordinate description or designation for them, but the Montauk, you know what I'm saying, was the top dogs, and it's the children. You got the wine dance, you got Shinnecock,
Yep.
you got the 5 civilized tribes. You know what I'm saying?
Dude.
All the way down to the Canarsie and shit like that. You feel me?
That's crazy.
So there was a bloodline called the Pharaohs
Bloodline called the Pharaohs. Dude.
at the tip,
Tip.
at the tip of Long Island.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we talk about Kings County, right, which I named my clothing
and not only
company,
that, yeah, they
Classic.
have a part of their mythology is that when they're because they have pyramids on, it's called Pyramids of Montauk. It's a
Pyramids
book
of Montauk.
written by Peter
Peter
Moon.
Moon.
Everybody should go and get it, you know, because Pyramids of Montauk is going to take you to the Philadelphia and the Manhattan experiment with Preston Nichols and all of them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When these people traverse time, they ripped the fabric of time space in the 1940s and the 1980s with the Philadelphia experiment and the Manhattan experiment. All of that was done in Brookdale Laboratories. Well, not all of it, because some of it was done in Philly, but
Right.
the other part, the New York part, happened in Brookhaven Laboratory, should I say, in Long Island, which was in the tip of Long Island where the Montauk people were at. So what they did with the Montauk is that they came around in the early 1900s with the census, and they changed the designation of the indigenous people to Negro, blacks, and coloreds.
Yeah.
And then they went and said that these people is extinct,
Right.
right? Because they use paper terrorism, right?
Dude.
They use the pen that's mightier than the sword to erase.
To erase you.
Couldn't do it with a sword. You can't genocide and kill the people off with a sword,
Right.
but you changed their designation, and then they went and said, look, these people don't exist no more. There's no evidence of them, right? And then they came and took the land. And that mystical land, because they said that there was actual pyramids that hovered on that land. And that, according to what, what's the boy, Peter Moon said, he said that their mythology was that when Atlantis fell, they're the ones that left over from the tip of Long Island and went to Kemet and set up Kemet. That's what they say.
Ooh.
That's how far back.
Because you know it's all broke up anyway.
Peter Moon.
That's how far back.
It's all
that
broke up
civilization
anyway.
goes.
You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
me?
For real.
Now, let's talk about the power, or not just the power, the richness of the inhabitants of the modern day Kings County, right? And when I speak about that, let's measure it
Right.
through the lens of hip hop,
Okay.
because that's a language that we all speak,
Truth and
right?
right.
Okay. So if you were to tally up the top artists of hip hop, right, which is the birthplace of hip hop, would be considered the Bronx. But if you take all of the artists from Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island,
Yeah, that's it, bro.
and give us, you know what I mean? Give me a roll call.
Right,
Let's be fair to people who may not know.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do a roll call.
No doubt,
So
no
we
doubt.
got Big Daddy Kane from
No doubt,
Brooklyn.
no doubt.
Right.
We got Rakim from Long Island.
No doubt.
Nas from
We got
Queens.
Nas from Queens.
No doubt.
We got Biggie from Brooklyn.
Yes, it
Got
did.
Bismarck.
We got Bismarck.
That's
got
it.
LL.
We got LL from Queens.
Nah,
Run
yes, it
DMC.
did.
We got Run DMC.
Yeah.
We got
No, it's
Jam
true.
yeah, we got MC
Yep.
Shan in them, for the lack of a better.
Yeah.
We got
The whole
Leaders of
Juice
New
Crew.
School.
Just
Lead
Ice.
it- Right.
We got Just.
We got 50 Cent.
Just Ice from Rockaway.
Oh, Just
Right.
like
Just
Rock.
like.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
in there.
Uh-huh.
We got Public Enemy.
We got PE.
We got De La Soul.
Got Daylight.
We got Flavor
Tribe
Flav,
Called
Tribe Called
Quest.
Quest.
All quest.
What about
Right.
Kwame?
We got
Kwame.
we got Group Home.
Shout out to
Gangstar had to
Group
come
Home.
What about
Brooklyn.
my boy came with the banger
We got
though?
MOP.
Ooh,
What
man,
is-
I
what
got
is
it,
it?
man.
I got it made. Come on, you already know what I'm
Special
saying.
Special Ed.
My guy, Flatbush. Hold on. Right? That was
Take
the
it.
homie.
Bigger.
Shout out to
Yeah, you
Special
gotta give
Ed.
his
That was
props.
the
No
homie
question.
from
For
the
real.
Bush at that time. So that was
Nah, you-
instrumental
that's
to
hip-hop.
our childhood.
That list is
I
way
mean-
longer than that.
Literally, and it's longer than that.
Yeah.
Foxy, Kim,
I'm throwing AZ on that list.
Of
You gotta
course,
throw
of
AZ on, no
course.
The
doubt.
Firm,
You gotta-
Nature,
Coogee Rap and
Mobb
Polo.
Deep.
Rap.
G-Rap.
MOBB.
The
Can't go
Mob.
wrong.
The Mob.
Oh, the mob. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Junior
Because
Mafia.
Prodigy, Prodigy's Long Island and Queens.
Queens might have the
Right.
most. I don't know.
He
Brooklyn
saw
is
it.
Sweet
pretty-
Queens
Long
of Brooklyn,
Dilemma.
no, it's true. And you know, Wu-Tang.
Some
Can't
of
leave the Wu out.
Well,
Well, who's from where?
OD is
Jizza,
from Brooklyn.
ODB and Jizza from Brooklyn.
Right.
But
Ain't
where's
Ray Corner one of them?
Matt from?
Nah, they from Long Island.
They
I mean, they're from Staten
They
Island.
from the state.
They're from the island.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Can't take him.
Allen and
Yeah, but
Shallon.
nonetheless.
It's all good.
But nonetheless, I'm just giving you, and then we could go into actors. We could go into boxers. We could go into athletes, right? Jordan born in Brooklyn.
Get out of here.
Yes,
Jordan
sir.
born in Brooklyn?
Jordan born in
He's
Brooklyn.
from
What?
Just like Nas
Brooklyn
was.
video that Jordan said
Yeah.
in the beginning of the video. I'm from Brooklyn.
I ain't never know Jordan's
They
from
got him
Brooklyn.
to say.
She was talking about actors.
Jordan
Spike
from,
Lee,
like, yeah.
directors too.
Yeah, Jordan from Brooklyn. So all I'm saying is you could tell the richness of the land from the people that are on the land. We are a reflection of the land in which we come from. Rich land, more land, right?
Truly.
Royalty, royal from the soil.
That's right.
Kings County, it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. Because if the king leaves the castle it's no longer a castle with a king in it. It's wherever the king goes.
True.
So wherever you are, wherever you land, wherever you are, that's your kingdom.
Right.
You carry the kingdom with you, within you.
Biggie said,
Big sound.
everywhere that I visit, I got land
Everywhere that I visit,
How
I
can
got
niggas
land there.
stand
How can
there
niggas
and
stand there and
sound like
sound
that?
like them? Hello, push whips.
back. Push whips is yellow. Come on now.
What's up?
So
Click to Tampa.
I'm just giving you, we could talk about the richness of this land that we're on right here, Atlanta,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Atlantis,
yeah, let's go there.
Atalanta,
Let's go there.
the
'cause
red clay.
That's something
So,
that's
the
needed.
land of
so
gold.
let's reconstruct,
Let's
right?
reconstruct.
Fuck that. Let's reconstruct.
Yeah,
Y'all ready?
yeah, let's go in.
Look, let's set the record straight out the gate. Atlanta's not down south,
Right. Got it wrong.
All right, see it there.
right?
For real.
Atlanta is up south, and New York is down north.
Right.
So if you looked at the topography of a map, right, it will show you that Atlanta is at a very elevated elevation, right? It's on top of a mountain at a very high elevation.
Right.
New York is sea level. We all know that, right?
True,
Right.
true, right, true, right.
Atlanta ain't got no seas over here. So on the map it go like this, right? So what's the orientation? They always got us looking backwards,
Upside down.
upside down. So is Miami the head or the tail?
True.
You feel me? Is Miami the head or the tail of this shit?
It is so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it ain't coming from up there.
Right.
America come from down here and up. Right?
Right.
This is a continent.
Right.
So we even looking at it backwards. You feel me?
That's deep.
But the Empire State represent king energy. Atlanta represent queen energy. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And they both represent two hemispheres of the brain. So the right and the left. New York categorically is the home of the conscious community, right? Which means it's what? Left brain centered.
True.
This shit is all intelligence.
True.
Right? Logic and reason. I want to debate you.
For real.
Right?
That's real.
Reason.
I want to argue with you, nigga.
Yeah.
Yeah, who got receipts? I need primary sources. I need, right? I'm going to sit here and read all of your primary sources. I'm not even going to listen to what you're saying with my heart,
For real.
only my head. Pause. So that's New York energy.
True.
Atlanta is the home of the queen energy. It lays on the 33rd parallel, right? Lays on the 33rd. 5 is man, 6 is woman. It's on the 33rd, right? It's a feminine grid. It's controlled mainly by the feminine principle here, right?
Right.
Women run this shit. From the strip clubs to government to corporate,
To the vegan mind.
right?
Yes,
To
it is.
to the vegan mile,
Right, it's true.
right?
Right.
So we just got to be understanding and real with ourselves so we can always be knowledgeable and cognizant of where we're at any given time because we navigators.
Truth to
You
real.
feel me?
Yes, sir.
and we far away from home, but we home,
We home, no doubt.
right?
No doubt.
That's a
Make
New
it
York
home.
trait.
Like you said, King's gonna make
Nigga,
wherever it's
yeah,
thrown,
wherever
it's
you
home.
go, it's home.
It's home.
Because
That's
wherever
true.
you go, there you are. So
Right.
it don't matter where you pick your castle up and take it to. You taking New York with you in your heart, any and everywhere. But we had to alchemize what that means, right? Because you got to retain your identity. Yeah, you have to have a personal identity of what it means to be a New Yorker. Because the default identity or definition is you a Roman, right? You come from the Empire State, and you are a representative of that empire, and you go to smaller provinces, and you knock them over and take their queen.
Dude.
What you do?
Niggas went with crack cocaine all through the South and was like, who the man? Right?
Knock them off.
Knocked him off, took his shorty, set up shop, and had all of the nerve to just be chilling in that shit like it was home. Like,
It's home, yep.
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what's up?
yeah, this, oh yeah, this niggas is hating.
Right.
Like, you just killed the big nigga. You killed the biggest nigga on the block. You toppled him and took his lady in public,
We took states over.
right? And you were there niggas.
For real, for real.
You were there niggas like, say something. And then have the nerve. They'll call the fucking, the cavalry down Yo, son, they fronting.
Right.
I'm like, no. How Ice Cube said, my homie got clapped. He was going to Jack. St. Louis niggas, what they calling his back. The arrogance. So you see it in the West Coast. They had the arrogance, right? In L.A. and he sent the locations. But the New York shit is, you know, the Empire State. It's a Romanistic mindset. So that's how we go around the world showing up. Like, nigga, we New Yorkers.
Yeah.
We come from Rome. Y'all come from provinces connected to Rome. Y'all ain't never been to Rome.
Right.
Y'all part of the colonies of Rome. Huh?
Ecclesiastical, how the Empire
Yeah,
State is
so
the only.
yeah, the Empire State. I'll give you some scientific, super duper, right, esoteric, lawful receipts for that statement. Okay, in law, because all law is based on religion, right? Hence the fact that it's ecclesiastic. The only place that's considered America, like or part of the empire, is New York because it's contingent upon the archdiocese of New York, right? Wherever the archbishop is at, that's where the motherfucking,
Right.
that's the only place that's popping at.
Nah,
That's
see
the
what you're saying.
ecclesiastical.
That's their head. That's their
Right.
everything else is just it's whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Paying taxes.
and the way that they were able to finesse and freak this shit is through New Orleans, because New Orleans incorporated Napoleon law, right? By that adoption, and they brought Napoleon law onto this land, and that merger caused some sort of like freakish way that they operate. But that's how they operate.
I can see that.
They
Yeah.
operating through this New York charter and this New Orleans magic, right? With their freakish magic, the way that they do their shit, because you know the French is freakish,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Their French masonry is different. Their French magic is different. How the French orientate sexually with melanated people is different on the planet, right? So you always know, especially the adversary, his mental proclivities is based on his sexual propensities.
Right.
That's a fact.
You feel me? You have to study, in order to study your enemy, you have to study the way that he deals with sex as an orientation, because that tells you everything that you need to know about a man, right?
I see. Yes, indeed. Everything.
So, you know, it's interesting, like I said, but if we reverse some of these concepts, you know what I'm saying, and see some of this shit for what it is, then, you know, we can really, you know, reverse it just by observing it and calling it for what it is.
Right.
And what it
That's how
truly
you,
is.
yeah, like, we don't acknowledge the power of our sight. You know what I'm saying? Because the sight is connected to your brain. Your brain is responsible for your perception, your feel. Like, what you materialize into your reality is based on your perception. And your perception is based on these eyes that's connected to your brain, sending signals back to your brain. Your brain rearranged this particular narrative, and that's what becomes your script. And then your magnetic pole, which is your G center, magnetizes everything to you to make that a reality. So when we start just changing how we perceive things and how we see things, that's how they like, if you want change, what you gotta change what you see, and everything that you see will change.
Right.
True.
That's what they mean.
True.
Secret degree.
But see, they got two
It's-
brains though.
At a minimum, yeah.
Yeah, they got two brains because one brain is in the head and one brain is in where.
Stomach,
All right, so
you know.
that's where the heights got to rise up to.
Right.
We thinking with the brain in the head.
There's actually 4 of them joints.
For them.
Yeah, one is in the spleen,
Mm-hmm.
and one is in the Johnson, right? 'Cause that nigga got a mind of his own.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking that. Now you get a spleen though, but I can feel you on
You know
that.
what I'm saying?
That's the truth, for real.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
No,
we
that's
all been
true
there.
sound. That's true sound. That's why you gotta
we
be
been there.
really thinking from the head on your head. Yeah,
you gotta think from the head on your head, because the little head will take over.
Mm-hmm. And that's
But-
what's going on right there right now.
Yeah.
But the heights of it is though true though, Blue. It's like we got to start really thinking. You know what I'm saying? like on higher levels and knowing
why we on
ourselves.
Think Champs.
You know
That's why we got Think Champs.
that's why I'm loving it, because at the end of the day is, you know, they start stealing Africans and African American brains. You know that?
Right.
You know that, Rev?
What?
That they start stealing African American
Oh.
brains
Yeah.
From the past?
right now.
When
been
haven't
doing that.
they done that?
When haven't they been
Well,
doing that?
well,
They
well,
going in the tombs and doing that
They
to this
going
day.
on.
To this day, live.
Well-
yeah.
really because they're not using it.
They're not using what?
You
Their
go
brain.
ahead with it? All right.
They're not using their brain.
Yeah, that's why they stole it. Because they
Right.
putting everything in it.
Right.
I get it.
You know what I mean? They stole the brain right now. You know what I mean? Because everything that's in there is programmed to be in there. They not thinking for themselves. You understand? They on the heights where they just like, what they say do, that's what we doing. You understand? When right now, we supposed to be building, we right now supposed to be standing up for our reparations on a unity standpoint. You know what I'm saying? But the whole distraction.
Again, if I could control your narrative, I could control the conversation taking in your place in your head. That's gonna control your reality, because your outlook is gonna be based on your perception. How you're perceiving reality
True.
is how you're ordering yourself, you know what I'm saying, through the day. They like, yeah, we could collect the brains because they ours.
True.
He who controls your mind controls your destiny and your
Yes.
behind.
True.
Right?
True, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
they like, there's evidence that we got that these niggas ain't thinking for themselves. Look at reality.
Right.
Right? The
True.
evidence of you thinking for yourself, or melanated people as a general thinking for themselves, is them not having the reality that they have access to.
True.
And especially the trick is the melanated woman that could do it overnight, literally, not figuratively, literally, because she has the strongest magnetic fields. She reorients and refreshes and replenishes her blood every 28 days. She is the keeper of time. That's another falsehood that we need to diminish. And because you know we in a different place, we could say things as quantum rather than either or. I don't like playing that dualism game. Right. In order to break out of, again, his trap is dualism.
That's
Right. He's selling you this concept that we can perceive. Granted, that we exist in dualism, when no, we exist in singularity and we exist in quantum. It's not either or, it's both simultaneously.
True.
So the woman also is a keeper of time. Naturally, her magnetic pole or her magnetic field, right, emanates. Your magnetic field first emanates from the heart, not the head. Your magnetic field, your EKG reading says that your field from your heart goes the furthest out, and it travels at the speed of thought. Right? Which is exponentially fast. I don't even know the exact precise mathematics to that shit. I would have to Google it.
True time.
Right?
Yeah.
But it goes extremely far. Hers goes furthest, and she connects first with the solar winds, and the solar winds is the solar magnetism from the sun. The sun is emitting information. That's how we eat. We eat from the sun.
True.
The sun is just transmitting info. That's all it's here for, giving you the current, latest information. So what does she do? She's the dreamer. She's intuitive. She's right brain, right? But she don't got a place in the conscious community because they ain't even put her name in it. She's subconscious.
Right.
She's not conscious. She's not the male. Right? Atlanta is subconscious. This shit is spiritual out here. People come here and manifest. The red clay is magic, but it's sitting on a crystal.
Right.
So she got the magnetism sitting on a crystal on top of red clay. And the presence of red clay denotes what? That there's iron in the clay. And what is iron responsible for? Magnetism and blood. So she bleeds on this clay. This was Trail of Tears started out here in North Georgia, because they found gold out this bitch.
Facts.
Before they found it in motherfucking, they keep rocking niggas to sleep about the 49ers. They found gold in North Georgia first.
Dude, no doubt.
Blue Mountains.
And then they had the Indian Removal Act.
Right.
Right? And that's how people got caught in the pickle, because the Indian Removal Act was like, look, they gave them the right to now come and kill you and take your land. because you possibly had gold on it. So the indigenous people themselves as well were switching to indigenous identifications. Yes. The Indian Removal Act
Yes, sir.
dealt with the fact that once they found gold in the North Georgia hills, the Lunga, what's it called? They got a name for this shit up here. Delanega, right? Then they came with something called the Yazoo land fraud.
Right.
So they used paperwork once again because they was at war with indigenous mutant maroon civilizations.
Right.
They was whooping their ass in Georgia as well as in Florida.
Right.
Right.
Homo sapiens.
So they were siding with different quote unquote tribes, you know what I'm saying, as
Right.
scouts and things of that nature, or to fight their dirty wars. Then they created something called the Indian land fraud, and the Indian land fraud was their first attempt to steal the land by fraud, right? By assigning different colonizers hundreds and hundreds of acres of land that wasn't theirs,
Right.
right? So they was using paper gangsterism again to run circles around our people. Our people were still fighting. The Andrew Jackson came in, right? Him being the captain or whatever capacity he was in,
Right.
he was down in Florida fighting with the Seminoles and getting washed up, right?
Getting washed up.
So once he becomes president, he passes the Indian Removal Act. So now they can forcibly take the land that belonged to these melanated people. And some of those melanated people chose to change their designation because the Indian Removal Act gave the European permission to now come, or the colonizer permission now to come and kill people and take their land, take it by force.
Okay.
So, that creates this situation where we look at the Trail of Tears, and I ask people, I say, look, first of all, if they say, oh, the Cherokee and what have you, and the Yamasee left over here, and they had slaves that were walking barefoot from Georgia to Oklahoma, right? And they got there in under 25 or 30 years managed to build Black Wall Street. We need to have parades in every city in America because there's no other quote-unquote American who have overcome and embodied the true spirit of what they sell to be the true American story or the true American dream. These people redeemed themselves from being mere slaves to become masters of their industry. Where did they go to school to learn to become doctors and lawyers? And they build jetneys, right? They build hospitals. They build delivery systems. They said they had airplanes, right? They had whips and all of that.
Right.
So why no one can explain this? These are barefoot African slaves. Why are you not celebrating them?
That's so
Right?
true.
Where's their plaque?
Right.
Where's their monument built on some American shit that they overcame these odds to build Black Wall Street? No. Those people were melanated geniuses all along, right? And they got ran off of their land and ran into them situations where they still was able to, overcome whatever the obstacles was. They saying the Gaston individual, they're gonna sell ex-slaves land that got oil, this oil rich. And he was selling oil internationally,
Well, we know.
right? And that's when they came in, because there was a big deal on the table, right? And it was like, nah, you can't make that. You're gonna upset the balance of political power in these particular hemispheres, because he was dealing with Europe, I believe, selling oil. Now we can see to this day how personal that gets with this war going on right now.
True.
Right? And they embargoing people, telling them you can't sell this and you can't sell that, or we're gonna bomb you out of existence, or sanction you out of existence, embargo you out of existence, right? Close you off from aid and resuscitation. Is they not telling them that now? So back then they just flew helicopters over a community of melanated people and bombed the shit, and they keep telling you some bullshit about some little children touching white women. That's the same thing they use with Emmett Till, right? Every single episode involves that. Yet the only thing that changed post-civil right is that melanated men could now fuck Becky without having to worry about swinging from a tree. That's the only thing that changed. Am I lying?
Nah,
So in 1955, you say that the impetus for starting the civil rights movement was because Emmett Till was eyeballing, right? Some Becky, right? And then later on in 64, 65, 10 years later, once the legislation gets passed, that's what it got passed for. So then black men can go to bed with white women and marry them without threat of hanging from trees. Because that's the only thing that we can step back and say, oh, that's what we saw changed. And then you integrate into that particular culture, that house, and then hip hop comes along as a cultural expression and now expresses what it's like spending time in the house on some Arnold going to Philip Drummond shit.
But at that same
Different
time,
strokes, like
what also changed though, Blue, is that the mother that you speak of, Mama, right, the black woman, she was now absorbed into their corporate structure, right? Remember, they opened up the gates and took the wet nurse, from the house, Big Mama, and allowed her to come and run the company now.
yes.
Now she became, she
The
started out,
CEO, yeah.
right, all the way up to
She went from the cleaner to the CEO, right?
right,
She was, again, so this is putting the trajectory of women, right? Because this is post-women's suffrage and all of that. So one woman gets elevated to a position where she can now become from a cleaner to a CEO, right? A single mother who's operating a home, raising her own children, and conquering the heights of corporate America that her man did not have access to,
right.
right? And then his woman that's at home, that's his mama, right? Now she gets to exercise her, right, fantasies that she has always been indoctrinated with. Case in point, he had to make a decision about a trade-off because of technology, right? The technology of the TV means I'm now putting black men in my living room, right? And my child is going to get sexually orientated, mentally stimulated by this nigga gyrating on TV,
Right.
right? That's why they was telling James Brown and them, you got to make your covers white men.
Right.
And it wasn't because,
Right.
it's going to sell in the South because they think it's a white group. No,
Exactly.
nigga.
was
They
trying
know
to-
exactly who it is. They
trying
know
to
what.
start that Wavington.
They don't want you to see that swag. That's
Right.
that swag we talking about,
Swag.
right? That magnetic swag that
Right.
make them choose up. They man choosy,
Right.
right? So they have a natural inclination, even based on the genetic disposition of what they remember, to be like, I want Long John Silver, as opposed to Porky,
For real.
right? And he know that, and that shit represents genetic annihilation to him. So how's he gonna respond to it? Why would you respond passively, right? You would respond like a beta and be pushed out of motherfucking civilization and existence if you didn't take an aggressive approach.
Right.
So they came with the Great Society in the 1960s by way of LBJ. This is after they got rid of Kennedy,
Right.
right? Because Kennedy was about to do radical things with King.
Right.
They
That's
came with the Great Society and they passed the Civil Rights Act, got rid of King. LBJ comes in, you know what I'm saying?
Dixiecrat.
And a Dixiecrat and lays out welfare, Social Security, Head Start, right? What other social programs can I reel off the top of my head that's still in place right now?
Medicaid.
Right? Medicaid, yeah, Medicaid, all of this comes out of the Great Society.
Great Society.
And
right.
then if you go and read the PDF called The Negro Family, written by Patrick Moynihan, the New York State Senator,
Right.
Patrick Moynihan laid the whole game plan out. He said these children should be designated for annihilation because they have a detrimental disadvantage. The fact that they was raised by women, they're not going to be tough enough to be productive men in society that will add on.
Right.
So they was like manumission. They was like pull the plug on these niggas.
Right.
And they told them this. They said, we will attempt to allocate you funds from these different social programs, but if all else fail, you niggas better pick the dope up, right? And control your own underworld. They said you have to control the market because every other ethnic group, that's how they leveled up.
Right.
They say you niggas gotta control your own dope if all else fails. And if not, they was like, can't do nothing with you niggas. We can't do nothing for you.
That's true.
Because you was raised in households with only mamas.
and that's the underpinning of the
Yeah.
liberal.
They said that was the undesirables of
yeah,
society.
That's the underpinning of the liberal mindset of today. The Patrick Moynihan report, right? That's what a lot of the liberals, you know, that's how they move. That's where Hillary even comes with super predator, and then she precedes Patrick Moynihan as the senator.
As the senator,
Right?
They all look at the senator's in the seat, right? No, the governor.
The governor, right?
But the senator had came after they got rid of the black man, the blind man, and they brought the woman in.
Right. Yeah, homie who they lined up.
Yeah,
Remember the blind mayor? Patterson.
remember they lined them up.
Mad Fluke. They called him on the Mad Flukington.
That's
So
a setup.
mad setup. That was one of the biggest setups.
Yeah, they pulled him under.
Yeah.
Put him in the
Lined
seat,
him up.
man.
Word up.
Wasn't even fair.
How that was
Lined
set up.
them
Well,
up.
you see what going on though. Like the shelves is empty, you know. Yeah, there ain't no full shelves in stores out there, you know. Like lots of things is off the shelf right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've been speaking about this since
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year.
like
So
like
wanna
the
get into
prices.
it?
Yeah, we got to because the prices
Let's
is
talk
up right
about
now.
it, yeah,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Everything is up. You know what the word sound is?
Get some work.
Yesterday's price is
Not
not
today's price, and that's a
Right.
fact.
You know what I'm saying? We living in that Iowa right there.
Right, inflation.
You know,
Yeah,
inflation to the realest.
super inflation, man.
So let me ask real quick, did
Yeah.
the inflation start last year?
Inflation
Like
started in
before the
2020.
war?
2020
Or
it started.
it's in
Started
2020?
going
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
But I say really since Biden been in office though, let's keep
But
it real.
no, yeah,
'Cause
but-
even when Trump was in there, the prices was never this high. You know
No,
what I'm
they
saying?
wasn't, but remember-
and you know what I'm saying?
remember-
when he stepped out, and this guy stepped in.
But remember, let's revisit
Yeah.
2020.
Uh-huh.
Shelves was empty, was they not?
Yeah.
No
Did they
doubt.
get replenished?
But he got replenished though.
At one point, though, it felt like it wasn't.
Right.
Shit wasn't coming in because he had the embargo with China.
Right.
Remember, he's openly banging on them, saying this is the Kung Fu virus, and they
Right.
was holding back shit again.
The
Then
trade
they-
war started.
The
Yeah,
trade
yeah.
war.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
trade war
Yeah.
started before the pandemic.
Right, the trade war started before the pandemic.
You feel me?
And the way the war works, it could start out as a financial
The soft war.
a soft war
Right.
and escalate. So the escalation, why they kept calling it a war and an invisible enemy, but Trump was on the front lines already declaring that he called it the China flu, right?
All type.
So that gives you an example of he kept Wuhan, China flu before they started changing it up to the C-19 and all of these things. But he's giving you the point of origin of where this war came from.
Facts.
Right? So, as a result of that embargo, as a result of the tariffs and the taxes that they were putting on before this thing happened, when I was in the wholesale district, they were like, "Yo, prices is going up. We got to pay more for this stuff to come through customs, so we got to raise our prices, right?" And we were seeing, we were seeing shortages popping up. Then when this
And
thing
yeah,
happened.
because remember the trade war and the trade embargo also was over chicken legs in particular.
Right, the leg.
Right? Chicken legs, beef, and pork.
Right.
Because China owns Smithfield, which is the biggest meat processor of pork. It's in North Carolina, right? They were utilizing pigs from North Carolina also to send them to China, or no, Fort Detrick was sending them from North Carolina to China to do virus research on them as well,
Right.
right? They had a hurricane in 2017 that was supposed to hit Florida. After them string of hurricanes that came in the summer, because the 2017 hurricanes came after the solar eclipse of August 2017. Then came Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Irma, and then there was one that was supposed to hit Miami, but it took a left.
Right.
It went up the Palm, and it hit the Carolinas. It had wiped out all the pig farms, right? It was in September. I told niggas back then, I said, "What you think? These crackers ain't gonna bottle that shit up and figure out a way to sell it? You think they're gonna take a loss
Right.
on them pigs?"
Right.
So, shout out to Gary No. He came out with a report saying they grinded the pigs up and started feeding the pigs, right? They started feeding pigs pig feed,
Right.
actual pig, grounded up pig.
Right.
Wow, that's funny.
And I'm telling niggas, that's where that pandemic came. That's where that shit come from. Fuck a bat. It's gonna come out. It's gonna come out.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the
yeah.
pigs were being
People
sent
was
to
eating the food.
China through Smithfield. So then when the pandemic hit, they said we got a shortage because the meat packing places was catching the waves, right? Everybody was catching the joint in the meat packing districts. So they had to shut them shits down. So the meat wasn't getting packed and processed. The cows was dying because of the farmer situation, right? So the dairy industry was suffering. The chicken industry was suffering. You feel me? And then they was coming on strong with the Impossible Burger. That's when Slutty Vegan was popping. And that's when a lot of, I'm just saying, coincidentally enough, 4 stores in the pandemic, right? With the fake meat.
That's real. That's real sound. Nah, this thing chills for real. Keep it up. Because that's real. This is a bunch of fake meat.
Yeah, Impossible as fuck. That's Soylent Green. I ain't gonna bang too hard on Beyond Burger. But Impossible is not getting the pass. That shit is Soylent Green.
I seen a video, right, where they had this meat that they formed from a computer. You see that?
They 3D printed it?
Yeah, they 3D printed the meat and it came out just like the actual meat, and they just 3D print things. You know what I'm saying? They got a machine that they do this with.
Right.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is they really doing? So what is the food really if they're really doing that? Because it's the substance. You see it, it's like plastic, a bowl of fruit. You see it there, but you can't really eat it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the food they making now.
That virtual fake world.
That's what they,
Yeah, because in truth, real food will actually make you burp.
Wow, when's the last time you burped?
You know what I'm saying? If you eating something real, you're gonna burp from it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We eat a
You
grape
gonna let
right
it bubble
now,
up. Yeah.
you're gonna burp. You know what I'm
When's the
saying?
last time you burped for some food?
Right.
That's real food because it has to have oxygen in it.
Right.
It has to have oxygen, but it also has to have what?
Wow.
H3, not
Behind
H2.
the scenes can't
Right.
remember.
You understand? So that's real food again. We ain't eating real food. We ain't burping. People burp. The only time they burp, you know when it is? Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving night.
Thanksgiving night is the burp night.
Overstuff.
Yeah, you overstuff with stuff, and they burp
right.
up.
Yeah.
But you stuff with all kind of stuff.
Right.
Stuffing and everything and that stuff. So
And stuff.
my point is that we gotta really realize that we gotta eat real food no more. They got thing where they got people eating everything with no seed.
Everything knows.
Everything with no seed.
Everything with no seed.
But the
right?
reality is that's where we come from, a seed. Everything
Everything.
has to come from a seed.
Everything. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're already in the midst of them once again priming an artificial reality, right?
Right. In the throes of it.
Right. We in the throes of it,
Yeah, early.
and I'm telling them, I'm like, look, this is the countdown, right? Man has a date with destiny. The main question is, will he mount the machine or will the machine mount him? Because he cannot avoid contact.
True.
Right?
True.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. So where we at? Like, what are we talking about? So if you got 2 things running concurrently in the reset, right? You have them creating an entire fake food industry when there's a food shortage,
True.
right? So if I could come to you and be like, oh, I can make as fast as I can manufacture this is as fast as you can eat, and if I could do this quicker than it takes to raise cattle or grow food.
But where does those
Right.
little baby wings come from though?
Look, we can't even, you know what I'm saying?
Where do the little baby wings come from?
So
Like,
they have this thing running here where they talking about microplastics and all of the food, and they're making a big deal about it.
yeah.
But soy and plastic is only 1 molecule separated. So you're already eating plastic. They lying to people. Imagine this. Children have been born from the age of 0 to 1 epigenetically. If their mama was eating Cheetos and hot chips and blue soda, right? What is the nutrients and the material going into them in the womb to form them as a baby? But now they're born as a baby, right? More than likely, 7 out of 10, they're getting pulled through her side through a C-section, so they're not getting crowned, corona, right? They're not getting crowned by coming through the vaginal canal and getting the microbiome that's necessary for that child to build up his immunity, and he gets his script, his whole, yo, this is this is that, right? You can't do nothing without some dirt on you. You just can't, right? He's missing the microbiome, right? She's traumatized because she just got cut on. She put him on formula, not the breast, so he's not getting the colostrum fluid to activate the pineal gland by the suckling that comes by way of him connecting to the breast. She hit him with the bottle, she hit him with the formula.
Well,
You feel me?
that,
More plastic.
Let's speak on that though, because
Right? More soy, more
the energy that the breast milk gives, you know what I'm saying, is better for the youth off top.
Yeah,
Build their
immune. Yeah, right.
Build their immune system, everything.
That's why babies wasn't getting sick during this thing.
True. From breast, yes, from breast milk.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. So they got the women not breastfeeding. You understand? Calling the thing and saying, "Nah, there's something wrong with that."
Right.
But the natural part of actual birth is the breast milk. You understand? To even for the youth to even get their first life source.
But it's like you said a minute ago, it's the
Liquid gold.
programming. We can identify that through the use of what they call the fantasy industry, right? The fantasy industry is an industry that's one of the most overlooked industries that's responsible for the programming,
True.
right? So the fantasy industry is Hollywood.
Yeah.
The fantasy industry is
Weird.
the cartoons we watched growing up.
True.
The fantasy industry is the comic books that we read growing up. The fantasy industry is the video games that we played growing up. The fantasy industry is the Magi nation, monetized, compartmentalized, industrialized, and realized. Right? I just seen a thing that said Hello Kitty has grossed $850 billion, and they launched it in 1975, the year we came here, right? Somebody gave birth to an idea that existed in the imagination, right? In the mind's eye, on a mental plane, and brought it down and consecrated it to where it has, it's a whole entity, right? A whole industry, a whole entity, and it grossed in a monetary value wise 850 B's. That part.
I'm gonna look that up.
Right? Yeah, check into that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
That's deep.
we were having a conversation earlier. Blue mentioned that the episodes of G.I. Joe are now on YouTube, right?
Yes, sir.
They dropped the original seasons.
streaming it right now.
They streaming it.
Okay.
And when we watch the cartoons that we grew up watching, our generation, I could speak of,
No doubt.
right? Your time is ticking. We were being programmed for the reality that we live in right now, back then, when we were teenagers, when we were young adults, when we were the youth, when we were teens, when we had impressionable minds. It was feeding our imagination, the fantasy industry. We had comic books, the same movies that everybody is going crazy over in Marvel Universe. That's the comic books that was programming us to have us thinking about the multi-universe. Fantasy industry. I remember watching Star Wars and what it did to my imagination. How it opened up, how it gave me permission to see this shit for what it really was, galactically. Fantasy industry, imagination, programming, right? So the programming through all of these different, industries and whatnot has actually shaped the reality that we live in, because man is mind, all is mental. So we living in it. We living in our imagination. We're living in, we're living in within the programming that these industries have. So the same way that we could say that they've programmed the people to eat bad, I'll say that the work that the conscious community did, right, collectively, master teachers included, going back to the VHS days.
No doubt. Yes, it did. Remember that.
Y'all know about that.
Yeah.
To where we at right now.
Split the tape. Or slide
And I'm
the
talking
tape.
about,
Yes, it did.
we talking about all the way in the 80s, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And it goes back before that, because Garvey and them was putting in work, Malcolm X videos, all of that stuff. So they were also creating a narrative. They were also programming. Elijah was programming. Father Allah was programming. Noble Drew Ali was programming. Marcus Garvey was programming. W.E.B. Du Bois was programming.
That's real.
right?
That's so real, so real.
Bob Marley was programming. Peter Tosh was programming.
Peter Tosh.
Selassie I was programming.
Nah,
The Black Panthers were programmed. I mean,
True.
we've been getting programmed,
True.
and we've been getting with the program. So I don't have, you know, I can't allow the victim mode, because the victim mode really don't exist to be like, yeah, I was programmed, I was on some, you know, low vibration, low frequency, under the spell, but I'm paying attention to how many people we broke out the spell.
Yes, sir.
That's all I could really account for. You know what I mean? I can't count the zombies right now because it's too many of them. I could say that over the years, we could gauge and we can measure. We have a tool of measurement that I know when we started out and we was in certain places, in certain buildings. I never was somewhere, I never wasn't somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. Like if I missed some shit, then it was, yeah. So we was where we were supposed to be because timing is everything. So our timing was impeccable. Our vantage point and the way that we see this shit is completely unique and different from anybody other's vantage point that I know personally. So I can measure I can see the growth. I can see the expansion, the exponential growth, a mathematical equation, an algorithm. This shit has multiplied in ways that, you know, Bitcoin has multiplied. It has the same trajectory as all of these cryptocurrencies. Everything that's going to the moon, my nigga. If you measure what we've done, and if you know, and put it in those terms,
No doubt. This is all facts.
right? Proof of work.
Yeah.
Proof of value. It exists. The whole world is lit. Everywhere that I go, my world is lit. That's all that matters at the end of the day. Wherever I go, everybody is woken up. They like, yo, I took the red pill. What's popping? You know what I mean?
We're going to come back real quick.
Just hold tight.
All right.
In a hot minute, you know what I mean?
Yes,
But for
sir.
real, no doubt, family. Give
Yeah,
me
man.
It's more heat. Yes, indeed. More heat. Love it. Yeah, so in a minute, we're coming forward. 1.